Welcome to the X's and Argos film session for Week 7, Game 5 of the Toronto Argonauts 2022 regular season. My name is Ben Grant. Today we're going to take a look at Coach Dinwiddie's game planning and play calling, things for which I feel he's been unfairly criticized. I believe Coach Dinwiddie's a good head coach, especially seeing as it's only his second year on the job. I know he's made some memorable game management mistakes, and it is fair to criticize him for those, but I think people incorrectly assume that there's a correlation between those few mistakes, as high profile as they might have been, and the rest of what being a head coach entails. His game planning and play calling are excellent. And where this stands out most is in looking at the second half of his back-to-backs. So last year facing Winnipeg, remember the second week playing Winnipeg at home at BMO Field, the Argos put up almost 500 yards of offense using a game plan that looked nothing like the week before. And it caught the Blue Bombers off guard. And that's a well-coached staff, but it completely caught them out. And then against Hamilton, just a couple of weeks later, Hamilton's second leg of the back-to-back, Hamilton won the first one, and the Argos came out really strong in the second one. They won that game as well. Coach Dinwiddie is now 3-0 in these back-to-back situations, just having swept the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So let's take a look at how he prepares for the second game of a series like this. He probably starts off with some sort of self-assessment. This isn't unusual. Most coaches, most teams do this. So like, what did we do last week, or what did we try to do last week, and how are they going to try and take that away? If you go back to the Halifax game, Brandon Banks was the primary focus. He had 10 targets, by far the most on the team. They didn't connect on a lot of them, but there was a vulnerability there, especially on some of those sideline deep balls. So analyzing this, the Riders did everything in their power to stop the run last week, and they succeeded, but they lost the game. So it's natural to then think they would apply less pressure to the run, guard against the deep ball, and shade slightly to Banks. 10 targets for Banks last week. This week, not a single target. That was part of the plan. Saskatchewan was trying to take him away, and Coach Dinwiddie anticipated it beautifully. Okay, look at how Saskatchewan's defense was lining up this week. So this is Banks. He's isolated to the boundary. Argos have quads to the field. And look at this. So the Riders have got 2 DBs to Banks' side, but only 3 defending the quad side. This is also an RPO, something that we didn't see a lot last week. So this is really easy for MBT to figure out. You're not going to run against a box like this. Banks is a decoy with defenders out here this way. So Macbeth is going to take the 4v3 every single time. So we'll take a look at this. You get a great seal block from Phillips. That's perfect. Getting stock blocks beautifully. And watch Daniels here. This is a veteran move. So he could go either way at this point. And Ambles is going to follow him no matter which direction he chooses. But even though there's not a lot of space to the outside, it's a better choice. So Daniels gets around the outside. He just uses this little push to help Gittins secure his block, and he's able to get downfield on Edom. The Riders were short a lot of guys in this game, undoubtedly, but their linebackers were healthy, and they were still a force. In crafting both the running game and the passing attack, Dinwiddie did a really nice job of getting these backers out of position. So here they run a similar play to the last one, but we've got different action in the backfield. The Argos are actually at a numbers disadvantage here, but look how far off everyone is, except one of those backers. I mentioned before, this is Dean here, but he's not in familiar territory. They used him in a really curious way. I actually quite liked it from a design standpoint, but Dinwiddie was able to take advantage of it. So on this play, McLeod Bethel-Thompson reverses out on a play fake to Harris. He fires it to Gittins immediately, but look at what this action does to the other backers. They're essentially taken out of this play. Daniels, by far their biggest guy and best blocker down here, takes Dean really nicely. Ambles is going to climb to the next most dangerous man, and then Curley's going to take this one for 15 yards. Beautiful, beautiful play design. And they were able to do this all night. You had Harris attacking the middle of the field effectively. I'm not really showing much in the way of Harris runs. He had such a good running game, but we just sort of have to accept that that was working. And this was an extension of that. Those quick bubbles were sort of the run game on the outside, these, quick screens. Phillips is going to blow up. Is this Sankey? This is Moncrief. I was just going to say Sankey's probably got 50 pounds on Phillips, but it's not like Moncrief's a small guy, but this is a pretty nice block. Gittins takes out Lacombo, and Ambles is going to get like 10 yards out of this all night long. Now we've got Coach Dinwiddie's best 2 play calls of the night. One worked, one didn't, but both should have. They're both so beautifully designed. The one that didn't work, it's nothing to do with the call or the design. It was just a missed blocking assignment from Phillips, which was really rare for him in this game. He played really well. So look at the defensive positioning. So where's the advantage? You look at this here. Where's the advantage? What side are you looking at if you are McLeod Bethel-Thompson? It's the quad side, right? So it's 4v3 again. We want that. Look at the attention Banks is getting down here. This is exactly what Coach Dinwiddie wanted. Again, Banks is out there as a decoy. They're trying to take him away. Excellent. We'll go the other way. And Dinwiddie's 4x1 sets are almost always with quads to the field, to the wide side. But now Banks is ISO'd to the field. So either the Saskatchewan defense doesn't adjust in time, or they're so paranoid about that slant that we saw Banks run for a touchdown from about the same spot here against Montreal that they're overcompensating. So Adams down here, he's going to immediately fan to cut off the slant. I don't know who this is. This is probably Henderson. He's looking to take away any sort of mid-range inside move that Banks throws at him. Meanwhile, Lacombo's funneling him that way, and Banks is like, hey, do you think you brought enough guys? Meanwhile, the play's going over here where there's the huge advantage. Look at this right here. So I don't know how this is not a touchdown at this point. If you look at this frozen frame, Gittins has his guy locked up, and he's going to block him right out of the screen. But here's where the breakdown occurs. So you've got Phillips and Daniels. They've got what I call a peep block. This isn't a good term for you to memorize because I don't think anyone else calls it this outside of Mississippi, but that's where I got it from, and I'm going to stick with it, a peep block. They've got a double team on Dean, and what they're supposed to be doing is peeping over the shoulder of Dean on either side at Milligan. So if Milligan fires this way, Daniels is going to pick him up. But if he fires this way, Phillips will pick him up. And he does fire this way, but Phillips never leaves his block, and so he isn't able to engage. Even if he gets a piece of him, it's a touchdown. As it is, I still like Ambles one-on-one from this distance, but Milligan, he just makes a great solo tackle. But this should definitely have been a touchdown. Dinwiddie probably broke his clipboard over his head. There's nothing more infuriating than when you drop the perfect play, you get the perfect defense for it, and there's a breakdown like this. So you can bet after that last play I showed you, the Riders defensive coordinator, the secondary coach, they're all over the DBs. They've got their tablets out. They're looking at the alignment issue because they're 100% thinking, well, Dinwiddie saw that. He's going to fix the blocking mistake and he's going to come back to it. But Dinwiddie's like a staircase ahead here. He knows what the Riders coaches are doing on the sideline, and he set them up perfectly. So the next time he's down here, 2 quarters later, with the game dramatically hanging in the balance, he calls on Phillips and the rest of the receivers to redeem themselves with a little bit of acting. It's not the same formation, but this is actually smart. It's too obvious otherwise. And look at the DBs. I love this. They're not going to let Toronto and their stupid quick screens that they've run 11 times to this point get into the end zone. I'm going to freeze it right here. This is beautiful. So look at this. Every Rider defender thinks this is a quick screen to Gittins Jr. McLeod's looking at him. Phillips and Ambles are breaking down to block. And then Phillips, like Odysseus, slips past the distracted secondary into the corner of the end zone. Bethel-Thompson finds him for the easy touchdown. There's a great angle of this in the tight film because you can actually see McLeod Bethel-Thompson selling it. He's staring down Gittins before he lofts it up gently for Phillips. That is a heck of a play, design, and call from Coach Dinwiddie. Another offshoot of a successful quick screen game is that it sort of causes the interior defenders to hesitate, and you don't need to get them to hesitate long for it to be impactful. I want you to watch Sankey on this play. He's an aggressive linebacker. They all are, and that's what Coach Dinwiddie to this point in the game has been using to his advantage. And Sankey is going to be second guessing himself here because they've used his aggressiveness as sort of like, created it into a bit of a negative. This isn't an RPO. This is just, there's no decision here. This is just a run play. But watch how late Sankey is to react after Harris, knowing that he's usually lightning quick in his recognition of run plays. He's so aggressive as a linebacker, but not this time, because those quick screens that are being fired out on every other play have gotten him to second guess himself and freeze. It's not only Sankey too, like Edom and Milligan, they're playing too high on this play. Edom doesn't come into the frame until Harris is 8 yards downfield. Milligan finally shows up 15 yards into this play. Everybody is looking outside for that quick screen game. You see the same kind of uncertainty from the defense on this play. This is a draw play. I love that Coach Dinwiddie has put traditional draws in after we were begging for them through the first two games. They just work so well with this offense and with Harris. So as well as showing you the space that's created here because of that quick passing game that I highlighted earlier and just how everyone's kind of bailing out right from the get-go, I want to highlight a pretty ingenious part of this play design. I want you to watch Tate here. He's at left tackle. They know Charleston Hughes isn't an edge setter. He's going to come flying around wide. So they don't really even try to block him. I've been running draw plays for like 20 years. I've never drawn it up this way. I love this. I'm absolutely stealing this the next time I go up against an edge rusher like this who's just tearing around the outside. You don't need to block him. And this allows Tate, he just sort of puts a hand on him, and now Tate can get out in front as a lead blocker. He doesn't end up really helping out on this play. He could have in theory. It's really well designed. Tate gets a little bit lost in space. This could have been a much bigger play. But yeah, draw plays just aren't typically designed like this. This is just Dinwiddie knowing Charleston's tendencies and taking advantage of them. It wasn't all short passes and runs, and that's where we've got lined up here. I've got Coach Dinwiddie's pièce de résistance here. This is 2nd and 10, and this one play is going to set up the next drive perfectly. So 2nd and 10, the Riders have been calling cover 3 on 2nd and 10 situations all night. And here we've got a beautifully timed cover 3 beater. So Saskatchewan, they're in cover 3 cut to the field, and they've got a hold to the boundary. If these terms are new to you, please check out last week's film session. I reviewed these terms in detail: cover 3 cut, cover 3 hold. So this is Ambles on the line. Now, for this play to work, it's imperative that he gets a clean release. Saskatchewan isn't pressing here, but they've been walking Dean. Remember, we saw that earlier. Dean has been walking out in front of these split ends to really sort of hold up the play and to try and bust up those quick screens. And so Dinwiddie's built in what I like to call a spike release. This is Phillips. He's going to come flying in here and blow up anyone that's lined up over Ambles so that Ambles can get a clean release inside. So there's no one here, so Phillips is just going to end up clearing out the corner. That's the second responsibility he's got. He's a decoy in this play. He's going to first make space for Ambles to cut inside and then just clear out the corner who's got deep third. And Gittins is just going to draft him, to use like a F1 term. He's going to just sit in behind him and then cut inside and then get back on his stem. They've basically switched positions here where Ambles is going to end up becoming the inside of the 3 guys, Gittins the middle guy, and Phillips is going to become the outside guy. And that's why he's got to get back on his stem here. So we've now got an unobstructed, what I call a high-low on the safety. So a high-low, you can have a high-low on linebackers, you can have them on safeties. Basically, you're trying to make the defender choose. So Ambles has crossed his face underneath, and Gittins Jr. is flying up the seam. So Edom has to choose his poison. He doesn't really end up making a choice. He kind of gets stuck in no man's land trying to play both. MBT delivers a beautiful ball with pace. There's nothing Edom can do. Phillips, who was doing the heavy lifting on this play, he's going to get back involved here. 5 years ago, he would have blown up Milligan here, but this is the 2022 version of the peel back block. He's just disrupting enough without getting a penalty. Gittins can now run cleanly into the end zone. This is a gorgeous play, start to finish. It's well designed, called at the right time, and perfectly executed. So now, next drive, What do you think that play is going to do to Saskatchewan's defense? Nothing deep, right? They're paranoid now about the deep ball, so it's time for a screen pass. And Toronto ends up running 2 screen passes on this drive. The timing's great because it's right before the end of the half, so they're in a little bit of a prevent kind of look anyway, but they're also reeling from that bomb to Gittins on the last drive. So this first screen pass is a traditional running back screen. McKellar's going to just burst out of here like a freight train leading Harris downfield. I love what Bladek does. He's going to turn to keep these 3 trailers from getting involved on the play. Blockers so often forget to look behind them. I want to actually, let me just call an audible here. I'm just going to bring up the Speedy Banks punt return for a second. This is just out of left field, but here we go. So just looking at what Bladek just did, where he looked behind him for the block, imagine if we had anyone really, but look, if we look back here, instead of looking forward and running along with Speedy B, this punt return might have gone for a touchdown. You just need one guy to look back instead of running with him downfield. All right, let's get back to our screen passes here. So this second screen pass, this is more of a dump off than a traditional screen, but it's the same idea. And you see how much space there is. There's 15 yards. When Harris catches this ball, there's 15 yards between he and the most dangerous defender because they're paranoid about the deep ball. This is the effect of that play to Gittins Jr. that I showed you a couple plays ago. If you're a believer in Coach Dinwiddie, I hope this film session has, renewed your faith in him. And for those of you that are doubters, and I've seen quite a lot of them on Twitter, maybe this has given you something to think about. I hope it has. Give him a chance. I promise you, he's a good coach. As usual, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm always happy to talk football with you. Thanks so much for tuning into this X's and Argos film session. I'll see you next time.